Sha'Carri Richardson just ran a 10.66 in Budapest World Championships in 100 meters. Unbelievable. I mean, some of these women today in track and field, Sha'Carri Richardson, spectacular. I mean, 10.66. She did it in Budapest an hour ago. Good for her, man. World champion. That's picking them up and putting them down. Okay? That's insanity, man. Point blank. They'll let her in the Olympics. Absolutely, man. She is just wow. We have so many talented women. I think it's tougher to make the U.S. women's track team than it is to win an Olympic medal. We have so many gifted athletes. It's tougher to make the U.S. team. Bob Kersey told me this. I'm friends with Bob Kersey. He follows me on Twitter, and he's the UCLA coach. And he said it's tougher to make the U.S. team than it is to win a gold medal. So congratulations to her, man. She can flat out pick them up and put them down. Tremendous. So now the 49ers are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. You see, Trey Lance was better. Is Trey Lance a starting quarterback in the National Football League? We're going to get to week 2 of the NFL here in a minute. But absolutely not. So he was better, man, in moments. Just not good enough. Now, before I get to the disrespect, and it's not from me, on her, this thing continues with Jalen. Okay? What Georgia Bulldog on the Eagles will be the first Pro Bowler? Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. Who will be the first Pro Bowler out of these 4 guys? Who will have the most Pro Bowls? Carter? Yeah, me too. I do. Hey, can Nolan Smith lead the NFL in sacks? Who could lead the NFL in sacks? Jalen Carter or Nolan Smith? Man, 4-3, right? 4-3. Carter's so good, man. Hey, I would say this to you. Okay, you talk about, and I'll even throw Nakobe in here. You talk about 4 really great athletic guys. I don't know if Dean's going to be a good linebacker, but I'll tell you something. Dean, Davis, Carter, Smith, there's one thing they do at Georgia. They recruit athletes. You got them dudes on your roster, your 85-man roster. Shit, dude. No wonder Georgia's got a ton of these guys still coming out in the pros every year. There is a ton of athleticism. I mean, if you're just going like this, okay, how athletic are those guys? Shit, let's just start how good of athletes they are. It's a pretty good, you have a guy like Zach Thomas, not the most gifted athlete on the planet. He's a tackling machine. He's really good. And you got Nakobe and Davis and Carter and Smith. These guys are really great athletes, man. They're totally great athletes. Okay. I put these 4 guys because I think these 4 guys are going to get more of an opportunity to start. Ringo too, he could be something down the line. I think he's the lesser of everybody in there, though. All right. So let me get to the disrespect to Jalen Hurts. Hey, Dan, you should do a top 10 Georgia players in the NFL. See, top 10 Georgia players. Chubb, Roquan. I'd have to think about that. But Chubb and Roquan are probably 1 and 2. Okay. I'll tell you this kid Pickens. I think he's going to be a good player too. I think that kid Pickens is going to be the Steelers' #1 wide receiver by the end of the year. I mean, I think, depending how good Kenny Pickett plays. Okay. I saw this before I went on the air. These are the quarterbacks that they think are going to have breakout big years in statistics at the quarterback position. Guys are going to put up big numbers this year that haven't put them up in the past. CBS's 5 quarterbacks that are going to have breakout years. I wouldn't say 3,700 yards and 22 touchdowns a breakout year. It was a tick up from what he did the year previous. That's not going to be in the conversation with those guys. What's this? Is it right? No. They look at the NFL player as a fantasy league. Do you get that? They look at players at that position strictly as passers, and they're I'm trying to expand it. Like that ridiculous conversation, Justin Fields being compared to Jalen Hurts. Okay, yeah, all right, he's a better athlete. Great. What's that mean at the end of the day? Really nothing. Really nothing. So here's who CBS says are just going to have massive breakout years. Number 5, do me a favor, please. No laughter yet. No, hey, this is not my list. Please, no laughter. Okay? Because the first one, I got to think there's going to be quite a bit of laughing. And I'm going to do my best. Number 5, Sam Howell, Washington Commanders, according to CBS, is going to have a massive season numbers-wise. Now, Antonio Gibson, the 2 wideouts. Okay, I mean, he's got players around him to do it. Sam Howell, they say could throw for almost 4,600 yards this year. Hey, sure. Hit the 4th one. I don't get it. But Anthony Richardson. Do you know what they're saying? He's going to put up numbers and he'll have a better season than Jalen Hurts. I was like, Pete Prisco said this. I was like, so Anthony Richardson. I mean, Jalen Hurts' completion percentage was in the 60s at least. This guy's 51. You think that guy is going to be a better passer in the NFL than he was in the Southeastern Conference? Boy, do I. Hey, look, I good luck to him. I hope he breaks every Peyton Manning record and Johnny Unitas record and Andrew Luck record in Colts history. Jim Irsay is like, this guy's unbelievable. They sat him last week. I'm like, why would you sit a guy like you're treating him like he's Joe Burrow or something, or Patrick Mahomes? This is CBS. Like, I wouldn't have put one of these guys on this list. You're going to love this one. According to Pete Prisco, Daniel Jones by the end of the year will be the best quarterback in the NFC East. Now, are they doing this shit to get the Eagle fans? I feel you're going overboard. Daniel Jones? Number 2. Now, I kind of see this. Jared Goff has worn on me. Could you see Jared Goff throwing for 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 12 wins this year? I can. He's done it. I mean, I wouldn't say breakout, though, right? This guy's already been to a Super Bowl. So breakout, I don't know. I mean, Jared Goff's worn on me. I did not like this player. I didn't think this player was that good. But I could see, has Jared Goff ever thrown for 4,500 yards? I don't think he's thrown for that. Maybe he did in LA. I don't know if he threw for 4,500. But he's put up some pretty decent years. I mean, I'm starting to warm up to him more and more every time I watch him. He's turned the Lions around. Jeff, I don't think he's thrown for that many yards. I don't even know if he's thrown for 4,000 yards. Probably with McVay, he's probably done that. But he had a really great year. Hey, and I'll say it one more time. That Jameson Williams kid, he's got to get healthy, and he's got to be smarter. Or that guy's career is going to be one of those careers where you looked at him and you went, what the hell happened to that kid? He was great in college. I mean, that guy was a baller in college. All I see is trouble and injury. He's never healthy. He had 4 last year. Thanks, Barb. He threw 46.88. Wow, 46.88 in 2018. That's quite a number. So breakout? So you think he's going to have a 5,000-yard passing year? I don't know. Maybe he does. And the number 1 quarterback who's going to have a spectacular season this year, according to CBS, is Brock Purdy. Okay. Dude, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson, and Sam Howell. Okay. Who do I think is going to have a great year putting up numbers? Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Gino? Gino probably. I think, didn't Gino lead the NFC in passing yards? Anybody else in the NFC have more passing yards than Gino? In the NFC? It could have been the guy in Minnesota. Nobody from the Brady. Brady could have been. Brady could have had 4,600. Brady could have led the NFC in passing yards. He could have led the NFC in passing yards. Yeah. He could have. Hey, you know what, JM? I don't think Jordan Love's had a bad – I don't think he's had a bad camp. I actually think he's played pretty well. Russell Wilson's in the AFC now. I thought he had a pretty good camp. Jalen Hurts is going to lead the NFL in passing yards and touchdowns. You heard it here first. Okay. That means he'll have more picks. Remember that. This is not about touchdown passes and yards. This is about not turning the ball over. It's not about the great play. It's about protecting the football. So what would you rather? Here, Tone, this is what I try to explain to people. Would you rather have a quarterback with 4,500 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and 14 picks? Or would you rather have a quarterback with 3,800 yards, 25 touchdowns, 5 picks? Who'd you rather have? And can run the ball. The running play is the least turnover play. So Jalen had, get this. So Jalen had, what did he throw the ball? 450 last year? He had 167 carries last year, I believe it was. If you think about it, Jalen Hurts was responsible with the ball in his hand for 617 attempts. How many attempts did Mahomes have last year? We talk about it. We talk about it off air all the time. Big Sills. Fantasy football has warped some fans' minds completely. Think about this, Tone. Jalen Hurts had 617 attempts, counting his rushing attempts, his passing attempts. How many passing attempts did Mahomes have last year? 650? Jalen had 5 turnovers. He had 11. Jalen will control a game more than most quarterbacks. Yeah, because he doesn't turn it over. CBS may want to test this guy for a drug use. Absolutely. Pete Prisco needs a drug test because I wouldn't even come up with that list. That's not a list that I put out there. I'll tell you that. That's not going to happen. All right. Quez Watkins, before I move on to week 2, I want to get to some NFL stuffs. What about Quez losing his starting job? Olamide Zaccheaus, the kid from Atlanta. What do you make of him losing his gig? Does that help or hurt the offense? Seals, your prediction on Jalen's numbers. Okay. You all right with that? You okay with that? He ain't getting $4,000 because you're going to have injuries this year. You're not getting that lucky. You get that lucky again. You okay with that? I can even see 200 carries. Maybe 800 yards. Had one Super Bowl ring at the bottom of that, and it's perfect. 29 touchdowns? Maybe. Sway, he misses games. He ain't playing 17 ball games. Let me know when he does. Let me know when Jalen plays a full season, and I'll change that number. He ain't playing 17. Okay? That's why Philly, you have to be sure who your backup is. Okay? You got to be sure who the backup is. He ain't playing 4 games. It's 17 games. Okay? He's never and he won't. He's not all of a sudden going to get healthier. Michael Vick, I don't even think ever played 16 ball games in his career. You want to hear something? In 18 years, Jim McMahon never played a full season. In 18 years in the league. I don't know if Cam did. If I'm being honest, I don't think 30 passing TDs is too much to ask for, especially if I expect him to get better. I like where his passing yards are, though. I would say this to you, Tone. If 30 touchdowns comes at the expense of 4 more interceptions, I don't want 30 touchdowns. Okay? I'd rather have the 4 timely interceptions back. Okay? I don't want the number you don't want to go up is the turnover number. Okay? The touchdown number. See, look, 22 touchdowns, 10 picks is awful. That's an awful number. 22 touchdowns and 6 picks plus the 10 rushers or 11 or 13, whatever it was, 13 rushing touchdowns. Dude, I mean, you're putting 35 TDs in the room. I'm good. Okay? I mean, I don't want 4 more great plays for 4 more shitty plays. Or I don't want 8 more shitty plays. Okay? Or 8 more great plays for 8 more shitty plays. That's not what I want. I'm not getting anywhere with that. As good as these guys throw the ball in today's NFL, I mean, you're asking for disaster. If you throw the ball 750 times in a game or in a year, that's what Brady did last year. Many of you think he had a horrible year. Look at how many attempts Brady had. And then get back to me on his turnovers. And he had a shitty team this year. Okay? Brady threw the ball for like 770 times and had like 6 picks or 9 picks. That's exceptional. It's exceptional. He threw the ball twice as many times as Jalen did and had 3 more turnovers. You put your team in a position to throw yourself out of trouble when you're like that. Okay? You never want to be over the 10 interception number because usually you're in a position where you're costing your football team opportunities to win. He'll sit out the last 2 regulars. He ain't going to be in that position, Chris. Not with that schedule. Absolutely not. You played a ton of shitty teams last year. This home field advantage this year is going to go right down to the last week. Mark my words. You're not going to be in that position. What's the reason the guy from Pittsburgh got fined for tackle? Is it because he launched into the player? Yeah, you can't leave your feet like that. You can no longer launch because they look at you using your head as a weapon. Can't leave your feet like that. Brady cares about winning. Don't give a crap about stats. Okay. Probably true. 22 TDs in a 17-game season is beyond trash. Well, I would say this. 12 games with 15 interceptions is beyond pathetic. Dak Prescott had 15 INTs in 12 games. I'm not sure what you think that is. I'd rather have 22 touchdowns in 17 games than 15 picks in 12. Not sure what you're talking about. It's beyond pathetic. Well, what's Dak's number? 12 games, 15 picks. Huh. Okay. You want to know what pathetic is? That's pathetic. Okay? Yeah, you're right. Jalen, I mean, and I'm not here to defend the 22, but for a Cowboy fan to sit there and throw shade on Jalen for 22 touchdowns, and then your guy in 12 games has 15 picks, I don't know where you're coming from. Okay? Yeah, Jalen didn't play 17 games. He missed 2. He played 15. That's even a better ratio. It is. He probably would have finished his – if Jalen were healthy, he'd have been right at 4,000, probably at 7 touchdowns, 7, 8 picks. He'd have thrown one in there somewhere. Okay, he probably would have thrown 1 or 2 in there somewhere. The one thing I love about Hurts, he doesn't fall in love with his arm, nor does he fall in love with him. The reason the Eagles win, he moves the chains, puts the ball where it needs to be. Well, again, Tone, when people use and talk like that, like what Tone just did, that's seeing the game. Okay. Again, it's a great line that Lincoln used. What's the point of knowing where due north is if you have forest in front of you and swamp and you don't take that into accountability? There's no point in knowing where due north is. You've got to be able to maneuver through the things that are in front of you first before you even can utilize due north. It's a great line by Lincoln. What's the point in knowing where to go if you overlook the things in front of you that will get in your way and stop you from having success? Okay? That's knowing the room. That's seeing in front of you. Well, they got an awful secondary. Oh, we're going to throw the ball. They got an awful front four. We're going to run the ball. That's a guy that does this, puts his ego in his back pocket and goes, well, if I get 145 yards, 172 yards passing, and I'm going to come up with 122 yards rushing, puts it all together, get a W, you win 38-14. What's the point? You got home. You knew what was in front of you. You knew the terrain. Okay? What's the point of just chucking the ball like Marino did when he never won anything of significance? What's the point of it? Marino knew to get the ball in the end zone. But Marino did not take into account the things in front of him that stopped him from having success in the critical moments when he needed it most. Those are the great ones. Well, we're going to punt. We're going to punt. And we're going to punt. And we're going to turn this thing into a stupid game. And I'm going to win this bitch in the fourth. Because my time is coming. You know what these guys keep doing? They keep knocking at the door. They keep knocking at the door. They keep knocking at the door. They keep knocking at the door, knowing full well the door will open eventually. It's the persistence that gets Hurts home. It's not the talent, which he has. It's the persistence. Never saying, look, guys like him, for the personality he has, is rare. Because you know why? Most of those guys are dicks. How many of the legendary guys do you know were good folks? Tiger, Jordan, Brady. Most of those guys are short. They're arrogant. They put up with no crap. They see things one way. They're colorblind to the point, whatever that is in front of them. They got one objective in their mind. Everyone else is insignificant around them unless you're part of the process. Most of those guys are jackasses. I wouldn't consider Tiger and Michael Jordan good guys. when they were competing with you? Look at what Ali did to his opponents. Foreman and Frazier belittled them, insulted them, race baited them, did everything he could, and he was the villain. He didn't care if the media liked him. That wasn't the point. Okay? These guys are all like, and for Jalen to have that attitude, it's refreshing, because usually guys like that are driven like that are just going to wait for their time to knock the door down, they're impatient. See, those are guys with no finish line. And what I mean by that is, and I tell people this all the time, if you're driven to be a successful human being, you have no finish line. There's no such thing as a finish line. You have the never-ending finish line. That's why Brady couldn't find it. And it was hard for him until he saw it. When Brady saw the finish line, it was impossible for him to go through it. That's why he balked the first time, cashed his wife and family in, and said, I have to get out of here. Brady had to retire for mental health reasons. He had to get out, or it's going to drive him crazy. When you're in a sport like that, look at Marcus Mariota right now. Brady wouldn't shake hands. Guy's a jackass. Absolutely. You think he's shaking the hands of Eli Manning? The two most hated people in his life are Eli Manning and Nick Foles. Because you know why? Those are the two guys that took three of the most significant things away from him in his life. Not his wife, not his family, his Super Bowls. He hates those three guys. Not as people, but as obstacles. Brady doesn't look at people like that as people. They're obstacles. When you're around these psychotic people, you get an education on what it's like to be around driven folks like that. You're like, wow. Like being around Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson's father died. There he was the next day at practice. And I was like this. What are you doing here, coach? Your dad died. Jerome and I are like this. What are you doing? He's like, you guys need me. I'm like, well, your kids need you too, and your family needs you. You know, I mean, you need to go to Port Arthur, man. He goes, no, I got to be here. We got a big. I go, coach, your dad died. Jerome, Winston Moss, myself, we're looking at him going, you need to go be with your family, man. His kids were there. His ex-wife, Linda Kay, was there, who since passed away. Linda Kay was like this. He needs to go. These guys are psycho, man. And Brian, maybe that's what it was too. He needed to be around us because we revered him so much and loved him so much, and we still do. But we were all like, come on, man. I remember calling my grandpa going, his dad died last night. He's here the next day practicing. Let's go. I don't know who we were playing. Didn't matter. We were like, gee, go home. Got on a plane, came back the next, one day he was gone. We were like, okay. I'm like, okay. Marino's 5K in 83 when the game was more predicted on running was remarkable. Also threw 47 TDs that year. I believe that's the year they got to the Super Bowl against the Niners too. I think it was the year they got to the Super Bowl against the Niners. I think, hey, Chris, it may have been 84. I don't know if it was 83. I think it was 84 that he did that because they were still in the Orange Bowl. I went to that game that night, Chris. Coach Shula invited us to the Bears game If you got, do you guys remember that it was this is for the older folks. The Bears were playing the Dolphins and the Bears were undefeated. And we had just played Florida State that weekend. Don came to us because they were still playing at the Orange Bowl, the Dolphins, and invited us to that Monday night game. And we all stood on the sideline. I stood on the sidelines for that Monday night game against the Bears. And we were at the Orange Bowl, and the Orange Bowl was rocking that night, and they beat the Bears. They upset them. I think they were 16-0. I think they were 16-0, and Coach Shula invited us all. And I think a handful of us got a chance to be on the sidelines. And we were on the sideline. I was standing on the sidelines for that Monday Night Football game. Don Meredith and Gifford and Cosell called that game, I believe. Those guys it was crazy. Oh yeah, the 72 Dolphin guys. Buonacani was on the sideline. Manny Fernandez. All them guys. Bob Greasy was on the sidelines. Those guys were all friends of ours. We loved every one of those guys, man. It was great. We shared the place, the Orange Bowl, with the Dolphins. It was great. How many field goals last year did Jalen put us in position for? A ton. Same way Brady put Vinatieri in many positions, right? Okay. Sills was everywhere. Fly, very fortunate in my life and lucky to have been in a few places in my life like that. That was a wonderful night. And Bonacani's kid, I think, Mark, what was really cool about our relationship with the Bonacanis and my relationship with them, and still with Mark to this day, what Jimmy did was, after Mark got paralyzed, I forget, 86, 5, when he was at the Citadel, they brought him to the University of Miami, and Jimmy gave him a scholarship so that he could go to school. And he went to school, and I know that they put him through the paralysis part of the University of Miami. We all became friends with him, with the Miami Project. And we all helped raise money for the Miami Project. For Sills. Run, Sileo, run! Run, Sileo, run! Yeah. Oh, man, that's funny, man. Yeah, 72 Dolphins made a commercial for the Giants when they beat the 18-0. Hey, I still say to this day, Barb, that Dolphins team is the greatest team of all time. They won 3 AFC titles in a row, 2 Super Bowls, and one of those teams was undefeated. It's got to be the greatest run in pro football history. I shouldn't like Jimmy Johnson or Troy. When Jimmy got to the Hall of Fame, I cried. We all did. We all did. We all did. Barb, one of the nicest things. Dan, it was a great run. Sure was. A lot of fun. Absolutely. All right. I want to take a look at some of the games that were played this past weekend. Please hit the like button. Keep it here on the National Football Show.